A snowy night in Paris awakening to winter's silence glows your eyes, and imagine waking to a world transformed by silence, the kind of silence only snow can bring to a city that never truly sleeps. It's still dark, but something feels different. You drift in that space between dreaming and waking, aware of the weight of quilts piled upon you, the way they press down with a comforting heaviness that makes you reluctant to move. The air on your face feels sharp, colder than usual, and you pull the covers closer around your chin, burrowing deeper into the small pocket of warmth your body has created through the night. Something has changed. You can sense it even before full consciousness returns. Paris is never truly quiet. There's always the rumble of cartwheels on cobblestones, the calls of street vendors beginning their rounds, the general hum of a city waking. But this morning, there's a muffled quality to the world, as if someone has wrapped the entire city in cotton wool. The sounds that do reach you seem distant and softened, arriving from very far away. You lie still, listening. Your breath clouds in the cold air of your room, visible even in the darkness. You've grown accustomed to the chillier, modest apartment near Montmartre. Like most working-class dwellings, in this winter of 1889, has no central heating. The small cast-iron stove in the corner went cold hours ago, and the February night has reclaimed every bit of warmth from the air. But this morning feels different, colder somehow, and yet also strangely peaceful. Slowly, awareness returns. You remember where you are. Your small room on the 4th floor of a narrow building on Rue Lepic, where the stairs creak and the walls are thin enough to hear Madame Beaumont's cough in the apartment next door. You can usually hear her moving about in the early morning, the scrape of her chair, the clink of her kettle. But this morning, there's nothing. Even the building itself seems to be holding its breath. The light, when you finally open your eyes, is wrong. Not wrong exactly, but different. It's still early, you can tell by the quality of darkness. But there's an odd luminescence seeping around the edges of your thin curtains. Not the warm glow of gaslight from the street lamps, but something paler, cooler, almost ghostly. You watch it for a moment, trying to make sense of this strange dawn. And then understanding arrives like a small, quiet revelation. Snow. It must have snowed during the night. The realization brings a mix of feelings. There's a childlike wonder, that immediate flutter of excitement at the thought of the city transformed. Streets and rooftops covered in white, the familiar made magical. But there's also the practical awareness of what snow means. More difficult walking, wet feet, the extra care needed to keep warm and dry. The way cold seems to sink deeper into your bones when everything is damp. You listen again, more carefully now. Yes, there it is, the almost imperceptible whisper of snow still falling. A sound that's barely a sound at all, more of a presence felt than heard. And beneath that, very faint, the careful crunch of footsteps. Someone walking slowly through fresh snow, their passage muffled and cautious. Your room is small enough that you can see almost all of it from your bed. The narrow wardrobe stands against one wall, its door slightly ajar because the latch no longer catches properly. Your small table sits beneath the window, with its 2 mismatched chairs. The washstand occupies the corner near the stove, your pitcher and basin sitting ready for morning ablutions, though the water inside will be icy cold. A few hooks on the wall hold your clothes, and a wooden chest at the foot of your bed contains your other belongings. Not much, but enough. The frost on the inside of your window has created elaborate patterns, delicate ferns and flowers of ice that catch what little light there is and hold it, glowing faintly. You've seen these frost patterns before, many times through this long winter, but they never cease to fascinate you. Each morning brings new designs, as individual and temporary as snowflakes themselves. By afternoon, when you've managed to warm the room a little, they'll melt away, leaving only streaks of water running down the glass. You know you should get up, begin the process of starting your day, but there's a deep reluctance to leave this warm cocoon. Under the layers of quilts and blankets, some patched, some thin with age, but all precious for the warmth they provide, you've created a small sanctuary against the winter cold. Your body heat, carefully conserved through the night, has made this space comfortable, almost cozy. To emerge means subjecting yourself to air cold enough to make your teeth chatter, to feel the shock of frigid floorboards against bare feet. But you've always loved these early morning moments, this time that belongs only to you before the demands of the day begin. In the summer, you sometimes wake before dawn just to watch the light change, to have these quiet minutes of solitude. In winter, it's different. The darkness lasts longer. The world feels more private, more intimate. You share these moments with the city, with all the other people waking in their own small rooms, facing their own cold mornings, gathering their courage to face another winter day. You can hear the building now beginning to stir. A door opens and closes somewhere below. The faint sound of a child crying, quickly hushed. The creak of floorboards as someone moves about their morning routine. Old Monsieur Dubois on the second floor, who rises early despite his age, his footsteps slow but steady. The building is old, built long before you were born, and it speaks in the morning groans and sighs and small settling sounds that you've learned to read like a familiar language. Outside, Paris is waking too. A church bell tolls in the distance, the sound coming to you softly through the snow-thick. 6 chimes, marking the hour. Time to begin. You know the rhythm of this day, have lived through countless others like it, but this one will be different because of the snow, because of the way it will transform even the most familiar streets into something worth noticing, worth paying attention to. You take a breath, steeling yourself, and then, slowly, reluctantly, you begin to move. The first contact with cold air outside your nest of blankets makes you gasp slightly. You sit up, pulling a shawl around your shoulders immediately, and the quilts fall away from your body. The full force of the room's chill hits you, and you shiver, but you're moving now, committed to the day. Your feet find the floor, and yes, it's as cold as you expected. You stand quickly, reaching for the heavier shawl you left draped over the chair last night, wrapping it around yourself like armor against the cold. From here, you can see your window more clearly, and you move toward it, drawn by the strange light, by the need to confirm what you already know. You reach up and pull back the thin curtain, and there it is, Paris, transformed. The first light and morning observations, but you can't stay in bed forever, no matter how appealing the thought. The day is beginning, whether you're ready or not, and Paris is waiting to show you its winter face. You stand at your window now, shawl wrapped tightly around your shoulders, and look out at a world made new by snow. The light is growing stronger, though the sun itself remains hidden behind heavy clouds that seem to press down upon the city. Holding in the cold, promising more snow to come, your window looks out over Rue Le Pet, and you've memorized every detail of this view over the months you've lived here. The narrow street, with its uneven cobblestones, the buildings pressed close together on either side, their facades familiar in every detail, the baker's shop on the corner with its painted sign, the apartment across the way with the red shutters, the lamppost that leans slightly to the left. You know this street in all its moods, bustling with activity during the day, quiet in the evening, occasionally rowdy late at night when the cabarets let out and people make their way home through Montmartre's winding lanes. But this morning, your familiar street has been rendered strange and beautiful. Snow covers everything, softening harsh lines, hiding the grime and wear that accumulate in any city. The cobblestones have disappeared beneath a smooth white blanket, unmarked except for a few early footprints that cut dark trails through the pristine surface. The rooftops across the way, where thick caps of snow and icicles hang from gutters, catching the pale light and gleaming like glass dot. It's still snowing, you realize, though gently now. Fat flakes drift down in lazy spirals, in no particular hurry to reach the ground. You watch them fall, losing yourself for a moment in their descent, in the way they appear suddenly against the dark facade of the building across the street and then disappear again as they blend with the snow already settled there. Some flakes catch against your window, clinging to the glass for a moment before sliding down, leaving wet trails through the frost patterns. The street is not entirely empty. As you watch, a figure emerges from a doorway 2 buildings down, a man bundled in a heavy coat, his breath visible in clouds before his face. He moves carefully, testing each step, clearly wary of ice hidden beneath the snow. You recognize him, Monsieur Arnaud, who works at the railway office and leaves early every morning to catch the omnibus at the bottom of the hill. He pauses, looks up at the sky as if assessing the weather's intentions, then continues on his way, his footsteps adding to the few tracks already marking the snow. A cat picks its way delicately along the top of the wall that borders the courtyard below, its paws lifted high with each step, clearly offended by the wet cold. You can't help but smile at its expression of feline disgust. The cat reaches the end of the wall and leaps down to a lower level, disappearing from view, leaving only the small marks of its passage. The quality of light continues to change as morning advances. The darkness is lifting, replaced by a peculiar gray-white luminescence that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Snow reflects what little light there is, amplifying it, so that even though the sun remains hidden, the world grows gradually brighter. You can see more details now, the way snow has piled in the corners of windowsills across the street, the dark smudge of smoke from a chimney 3 buildings over where someone has already managed to light their morning fire. Your window is a frame for this scene, and you realize you're standing in what must be a similar frame for anyone looking this way. A figure at a window, wrapped in a shawl, watching the snow. You wonder how many other people are doing exactly this at this moment, throughout Paris, throughout the world. How many other souls are standing at their windows, watching winter transform their familiar streets. feeling this same mix of wonder and resignation, appreciation and apprehension. The frost on your window has begun to melt where your breath warms the glass. You reach up and touch it, feeling the cold burn of it against your fingertips, and watch as your touch leaves a clear mark, a small space of clarity through which you can see more sharply. The frost is beautiful, you think, but clarity is necessary too. You can't spend the entire morning standing here, no matter how peaceful it feels. No matter how reluctant you are to break this spell, your room behind you is still cold, will remain cold until you do something about it. The stove stands in its corner, patient and waiting, full of yesterday's ashes. The water in your pitcher will be ice cold, possibly with a thin skin of ice across its surface. Your clothes hang on their hooks, and you know from experience that they'll feel damp and cold when you put them on, taking long minutes to warm to your body temperature. But first, just a few more moments at the window. You press your hands against the glass, feeling its coldness, and look down into the street. More people are emerging now as the morning advances. A woman with a basket over her arm, trudging determinedly toward the market. Two children who slip and slide on the snow, laughing before their mother's sharp voice calls them back to caution. The baker's boy from the shop on the corner, sweeping snow away from the doorway, his breath coming in white puffs with the exertion. The gaslight from the street lamp below is still burning, though it's barely visible in the growing daylight. Someone will come to extinguish them soon, making their rounds, as they do every morning. You've always found something reassuring about these rhythms, these patterns that continue regardless of weather, regardless of season. The lamps are lit each evening, extinguished each morning. The bells toll the hours. The bread is baked. The shops open. Life continues. You can see the Saker. See you're in the distance, its white domes rising above the neighborhood rooftops. The great basilica is still under construction, has been for years, its scaffolding a permanent feature of the Montmartre skyline. But under snow, even the scaffolding looks beautiful, transformed into something almost delicate, like lace against the gray sky. The church blends with the snow and clouds, all white and gray together, and you have to look carefully to see where one ends and the other begins. Smoke rises from countless chimneys, now dark columns against the pale sky, and the smell of it reaches you even through your closed window. Coal smoke with its sharp, acrid scent, and the sweeter smell of wood fires from those who can't afford coal or who prefer the old ways. These smells are the smell of Paris in winter, as familiar as the sight of snow, as much a part of the season as the cold itself. Your fingers are growing numb where they press against the cold glass, and you finally step back, letting the curtain fall closed again, reducing the window to a dim source of light rather than a view. The spell is broken. The day is truly beginning, and you can delay no longer. You turn to face your room, your small domain, and the tasks that await you. The floorboards creak beneath your feet as you move away from the window. Everything in this room is familiar to you, every uneven board, every stain on the wall, every crack in the plaster. You've lived here for nearly 2 years now, and while it's not much, it's yours. A room of your own in Paris, a place to shelter from the weather, a small corner of privacy in a crowded city. Many have far less. You move toward the stove, knowing that fire and warmth must be your first priority. Everything else can wait, but the cold cannot. Your hands are already aching with it, and you flex your fingers, trying to work feeling back into them. The stove will take time to warm the room, but even the process of lighting it, of tending the fire, will warm you a little. Movement, work, purpose, these are what will carry you through this cold morning. But even as you prepare to begin the practical work of the day, part of your mind remains at the window, remembering the snow still falling, the quiet beauty of the transformed street, the way the world can surprise you even when you think you know it completely. Winter in Paris is hard, yes, but it has its compensations, its moments of unexpected grace. Morning rituals and warming the room before you can step out into that beautiful white world. There are the simple, necessary rituals, the small acts of survival and self-care. You kneel before the stove, feeling the cold of the floor seep through your nightdress and shawl, and open the small iron door. The smell of old ashes greets you, that particular dusty, slightly bitter scent that speaks of yesterday's warmth, now gone cold and dead. That ashes need to be removed before you can build today's fire. You reach for the small metal scoop and bucket you keep beside the stove, tools worn smooth with use, and begin the careful work of cleaning out the firebox. The ashes are fine and light, and you work slowly to avoid raising clouds of dust. This is meditative work, repetitive and mindful, requiring attention but not thought. Your hands know what to do, have done this countless times through this long winter and the winters before it. As you work, you think about the coal you have left. The small shed in the courtyard below holds your supply, but it's dwindling. Coal is expensive, always has been, and this winter has been longer and colder than most. You've been careful, banking the fire at night to conserve fuel, letting the stove go cold sometimes during the day when you're out, wrapping yourself in extra layers instead of burning more coal. But still, the pile diminishes, and you're not sure it will last until spring arrives. You may need to buy more, which means going without something else, juggling the eternal mathematics of survival that govern the lives of working people in Paris, in any city, anywhere. But that's a worry for later. Right now, you have enough coal for today's fire, and that's what matters. You set aside the bucket of ashes to be disposed of later and turn your attention to building the new fire. First, the kindling small pieces of wood you've collected and saved, scraps from the carpenter's shop down the street, bits of broken crates from the market, anything that will catch and burn quickly. You arrange these carefully in the firebox, creating a small structure with space for air to flow. Remembering what your mother taught you years ago about how fire needs to breathe, your fingers are clumsy with cold, and the small pieces of wood slip and fall, forcing you to start again. Patience, you remind yourself. Rushing will only make it take longer. You breathe on your hands, warming them slightly with your breath, and try again. This time, the kindling stays in place, a small pyramid of wood waiting for the spark that will transform it. You reach for your matches, counting them automatically as you take one from the tin. Matches, too, are precious, not to be wasted. You strike it against the rough side of the box, and it flares to life with that sharp, sulphurous smell. The flame burns bright yellow, and you cup your hand around it protectively as you bring it to the kindling. The first piece catches, fire creeping along the dry wood, then the next. And then the flames are growing, spreading from piece to piece, and you've succeeded. The fire is alive. You feed it carefully, adding slightly larger pieces of wood, watching to make sure the flames stay strong. Fire is a living thing, you've always thought. Something that needs tending and care. Something that can die if neglected or smothered if overfed. You've developed a feel for it over the years. An instinct for what the fire needs at any given moment. Once the wood is burning well, you add the coal, just a few pieces at first, placed carefully among the flames. Coal burns differently than wood, hotter and longer, but it needs the wood fire to get it started. The pieces you add begin to smoke, then to glow red at the edges, and finally to catch, burning with that characteristic blue flame that means success. You add a few more pieces, enough to keep the fire going for several hours, and then close the stove door, leaving just a small gap for air. Already, you can feel the first hint of warmth beginning to radiate from the iron. It will take time for the room to warm. The stove is small, and the room, while modest, is large enough that the heat dissipates quickly, especially with cold air seeping in around the ill-fitting window frame. But the fire is started, the day's first task accomplished, and you feel a small sense of pride and satisfaction in this simple achievement. While the room begins its slow warming, you turn your attention to yourself. The water in the pitcher on the washstand is, as you expected, ice cold. When you dip your fingers in to test it, you find a thin skin of ice across the surface, which cracks at your touch. This water will not do for washing nor, rather, it would do. But the shock of it would be more than you care to endure this morning. You pour a small amount into your kettle and set it on top of the stove to warm. Not hot, you don't have time or fuel to waste on such luxury, but at least tepid, enough to wash without the harsh bite of ice water. While the water warms, you begin the process of dressing. Your nightdress comes off quickly, and for a moment you stand in only your undergarments, shivering violently in the cold air, your skin immediately erupting in goo. You reach for your clothes with urgent hands, pulling on layers with practiced efficiency. First, the chemise, thin cotton that serves as a base layer. Then, the heavy wool stockings, pulled up over your legs, their warmth immediate and welcome. The corset comes next, though you lace it loosely. Tight lacing is for ladies of leisure, not for women who need to move and work. Your petticoat, thick flannel for winter, and then your skirt, heavy wool in a dark, practical color that won't show every spot and stain. Your blouse is cotton, white, but yellowing with age and wear, and over it you add a wool vest for extra warmth. The clothes are not new, not fashionable by any standard, but they're clean and mended, serviceable and warm. And that's what matters. Your hands work automatically through these familiar motions. Buttons and hooks and laces, the same routine you follow every morning. You think about the women across Paris, across France, across the world, all performing these same rituals, all dressing in their own cold rooms, all preparing to face their days. There's something comforting in the universality of it, in knowing you're not alone in these small struggles. The water in the kettle is beginning to steam slightly, and you pour it into your basin, adding a little cold water to bring it to a bearable temperature. You wet your washcloth and bring it to your face, and the warmth of it is a small, exquisite pleasure. You wash your face carefully, your neck, your hands, taking satisfaction in the feeling of cleanliness, of readiness. You braid your hair quickly, pinning it up in a simple style that will stay neat throughout the day. You have no mirror. Such luxuries are for wealthier folk, but your hands know the shape of your hair, the placement of pins, the way to achieve a tidy result by touch alone. By the time you finish dressing and washing, the room has begun to lose some of its biting chill. The stove is doing its work, radiating warmth in gentle waves. You stand near it for a moment, hands extended toward the heat, letting it soak into your palms, your wrists, traveling up your arms. This is luxury, this warmth, this small victory over winter's cold. You could stand here all morning, basking in it, but there's too much to do. You move to the small table under the window and sit in one of the mismatched chairs. From here you can see the light growing stronger outside, can see the snow still falling, though more lightly now. Your room, reflected dimly in the window glass, looks almost cozy with the stove glowing in the corner and you sitting at your table. A small life, perhaps a modest life, but yours. You've worked hard for this independence, this small room, this privacy. Many women your age still live with family or in servant quarters, subject to others' rules and schedules. Here, in this small space, you answer only to yourself. You reach for the half loaf of bread you have wrapped in cloth on the table. Yesterday's bread from the boulangerie. It's gone a bit hard, but that's easily remedied. You slice a piece carefully. The knife is dull and needs sharpening. Another task for later, and hold it near the stove's warmth. The bread begins to soften, to smell like bread again, rather than just dry flour. You eat it slowly, savoring each bite, washing it down with water from your cup. A simple breakfast, but enough. Preparing to face the snow, you're finding peace in this slow journey through a winter morning. Consider subscribing to join us for more gentle explorations of history. We have many more stories waiting for you, but for now, let's continue with our day in snowy Paris. You've eaten your simple breakfast. The room has reached its maximum warmth, still cool by most standards, but no longer painfully cold, and it's time to think about venturing outside. The day won't wait forever, and you have errands that must be done, tasks that cannot be postponed simply because snow has fallen. You stand at your window again, assessing the conditions with a more practical eye now. The snow has lessened somewhat, falling in smaller, finer flakes, but it hasn't stopped entirely. The street below shows more traffic now, people making their necessary journeys despite the weather. Feet crunching through the accumulated white, leaving dark trails that will soon be covered over by fresh snow. You need to judge how much more might fall, whether it's wise to go out now or wait, whether the cold is worth braving for the market and the small shopping you need to do. The practical part of your mind catalogs what you have in your small larder and what you need. Bread, certainly, the half loaf won't last another day. Some vegetables, if they're not too dear, perhaps a small piece of cheese if you can afford it, or a few eggs. Oil for your lamp, which is running low. These aren't luxuries. These are necessities, the basics of existence. The market is your destination, as it is most mornings, the central point around which your daily routine revolves. You turn from the window and begin the process of preparing yourself for the outdoors. Winter in Paris requires layers, requires thought and planning. The wrong clothing can mean wet feet all day, can mean cold that seeps into your bones and refuses to leave, can mean illness that you cannot afford in either time or money lost. You've learned these lessons through experience, through winters past, through seeing what happens to those who don't take proper care. Your coat hangs on one of the hooks near the door. Dark wool, worn at the elbows and cuffs, but still serviceable. You've had it for 5 years now, bought second-hand from a dealer in used clothing, and you've taken care of it, brushed it, mended it when small tears appeared. It's heavy when you lift it down, substantial, and you slip your arms into the sleeves, feeling the weight of it settle on your shoulders. The coat makes you feel armored, protected, ready to face the elements. But a coat alone isn't enough. You wrap a thick woolen scarf around your neck, winding it several times, tucking the ends inside your coat to prevent drafts. You pull on your gloves' fingerless mittens, actually, that leave your fingertips free for handling money and goods, while still protecting your palms and the backs of your hands. And finally, your hat, a simple felt affair that you pin securely to your hair, and a second shawl that you drape over your head and shoulders, covering the hat, wrapping around to protect your ears and neck. Your boots are the next consideration, and this is where you pause, looking at them critically. They're your only pair, sturdy leather that comes to mid-calf, practical and well-made, but they're beginning to show their age. The leather is cracked in places, and the sole on the right boot has worn thin. You can feel the ground through it when you walk. They're not waterproof, not anymore, though you treat them regularly with the dubbin you buy from the cobbler, working the waxy substance into the leather to help repel moisture in snow. These boots will become wet, you know from experience. Your feet will get cold, possibly damp, and they'll stay that way for hours. But there's nothing to be done about it. New boots are expensive, far beyond your current means, and these must last at least until spring, possibly longer. You'll simply have to accept wet feet as part of the day's discomfort, something to be endured rather than avoided. You sit on the edge of your bed, lacing them carefully, making sure they're snug but not too tight. Tight boots in cold weather can restrict blood flow, can make your feet even colder. Your mother taught you that, along with so many other small pieces of practical wisdom about surviving winter. You wonder, as you often do, what she would think of your life now, of this room in Montmartre, of your independence. She wanted better for you, you know, but she also taught you to be practical, to survive, to make do with what you have. You stand and test the boots, walking a few steps, checking that the laces are secure. Everything feels as ready as it can be. You pick up your basket from beside the door-woven willow, sturdy and capacious, the same basket you carry every day to the market. It's as much a part of your identity as your coat or boots, the mark of a woman going about her daily business, a familiar sight on Paris streets. Before you leave, you check the stove one more time. The fire is burning steadily, and you adjust the air vent to a smaller opening, banking it so it will burn slowly while you're gone. If you're lucky, the room will still have some warmth when you return, or at least the stove will still have live coals that can be coaxed back to flame without having to start entirely from scratch. You can't afford to leave it burning fully. The coal would be gone too quickly, but a banked fire is a compromise between economy and comfort. You glance around your room one last time, checking that everything is in order, that nothing is amiss. The window curtain is drawn against the cold. Your nightdress is folded and placed on the bed. The breakfast dishes sit on the table, waiting to be washed later. Everything is as it should be, as it always is. Your life is built on these small routines, these patterns that repeat day after day, week after week. There's comfort in that, in the predictability. Even as part of you sometimes longs for something different, something more. Your hand is on the door handle now, but you pause before opening it. You can hear sounds from the rest of the building, voices, footsteps, the normal activity of morning. Madame Beaumont's cough echoes from next door, harsh and wet, the cough she's had all winter. You make a mental note to check on her later. Perhaps bring her some hot broth if you can spare it. The Dubois children are arguing on the floor above, their voices shrill, and their mother's sharp command cuts through the noise. Old Monsieur Gaspard is descending the stairs, his distinctive shuffling gait unmistakable. This building is your community, these people your neighbors. You may not be close friends with all of them, may not even like all of them, but you're bound together by proximity, by shared hardships, by the simple fact of living in the same structure, sharing the same walls and roof. In Paris, in any city, especially in working-class neighborhoods, this closeness is inevitable. Privacy is limited. Lives overlap. Everyone knows everyone else's business, whether they want to or not. You take a breath, steadying yourself for the cold that waits outside your door, for the journey down 4 flights of stairs, for the street and the market and the snow. Your hand turns the handle, and the door opens with a small creak. The corridor beyond is dim and cold, colder even than your room, and you can see your breath misting in the air. The building's narrow windows let in only minimal light, and the walls, painted a depressing brown years ago, seem to absorb what little illumination there is. You step out and pull the door closed behind you, hearing the latch click into place. For a moment you stand in the corridor, letting your eyes adjust to the dimness, feeling the difference in temperature. Then you begin to walk toward the stairs, your boots echoing on the wooden floor. The building is old, built in the previous century, and it settles and creaks constantly, especially in cold weather. The stairs are narrow and steep, worn smooth in the centers by decades of footsteps, and you place your feet carefully, one hand on the railing, mindful of the risk of slipping. As you descend, you pass the other floors, the other apartments. Behind each door, lives are being lived, some happy, some sad, some simply enduring. You pass Madame Beaumont's door and hear her coughing again. The Renard family on the 3rd floor, with their new baby, who cries at all hours. The elderly widow, Madame Leroux, who rarely leaves her room anymore. Monsieur Petit and his grown son, who work together at the print shop. All of you, living vertically in this narrow building, stacked on top of each other, sharing walls and sounds and smells. The ground floor is brighter, with more windows facing the street, and colder too, with the draft from the main door. You can smell coffee from the concierge's rooms, rich and tempting, and hear her moving about, beginning her daily routine of sweeping and cleaning. She nods to you as you pass, a brief acknowledgement, and you nod back. She's not unfriendly, but she's not warm either, simply performing her duties, maintaining order in this small domain. And then you're at the main door. Heavy wood, with glass panels that show the white world outside. You can see the street, the snow still falling, the figures moving through it. Your hand reaches for the handle, and you pause for just one more moment, gathering your courage, preparing yourself. Then you push the door open, and winter rushes in to meet you. Into the snowy streets, stepping outside is like entering a painting one where you're not just an observer, but a living, breathing part of the scene, where the cold bites your cheeks and the beauty surrounds you. The difference between the relative shelter of the building and the full exposure of the outdoors is immediate and shocking. Cold air hits your face like a slap, and you gasp involuntarily, pulling your shawl tighter around your head and neck, tucking your chin down into the wool. The first step into the snow is a commitment, and you feel it crunch beneath your boot, compressing under your weight with that distinctive sound that only fresh snow makes. It's deeper than you thought, perhaps 4 or 5 inches already accumulated, and you can feel the cold wetness of it, even through your boots, as you take another step, then another, establishing your rhythm for walking through this transformed landscape. The street is unrecognizable from yesterday. Rue Lepic, which you know in every detail, in every season and weather, has become a different place entirely. The cobblestones are completely hidden, the street now a smooth white expanse, broken only by the tracks of those who've passed before you. The usual landmarks are softened, blurred, the sharp corners of buildings rounded by snow, the familiar details obscured. Even the smell of the street has changed. The usual city odors of horse droppings, garbage, industrial smoke, all muted and transformed by the clean, cold scent of snow. You begin to walk, heading downhill toward the market, and immediately understand that this will be a slower journey than usual. Each step requires care. The snow hides the uneven cobblestones beneath, and you can't see where the street dips and rises, where the holes and gaps wait to twist an ankle. You keep to the paths others have made, following their footprints, trusting that they've found the safest route. Your boots sink into the snow with each step, and you can already feel the cold moisture beginning to seep through the worn leather. Can feel your feet growing damp and cold, but oh, the beauty of it. Even as you navigate carefully, mindful of every step, you can't help but notice how magical the world has become. The buildings on either side of the street wear thick caps of snow on their roofs, and icicles hang from gutters and balconies, some as long as your arm, gleaming like crystal in the gray morning light. The wrought iron of balconies and railings is outlined in white, every curve and flourish highlighted, made visible in a way it never is normally. The snow is still falling, though lighter now, and you tip your head back for a moment to watch it descend from the heavy gray sky. The flakes drift down in no particular pattern, following their own paths, some spiraling, some dropping straight, each one unique, though you can't see their individual shapes. They land on your face, cold pinpricks that melt almost immediately from your body heat, leaving tiny trails of moisture on your cheeks. You blink as a flake catches on your eyelashes, and when you look around again, the world seems somehow softer, dreamlike. Other people are out now, more than there were earlier. The city beginning its daily routine despite the weather. A woman passes you, going uphill, struggling with the incline and the snow, her breath coming in heavy white puffs. She nods to you in that silent acknowledgement people share when facing shared hardship. Two men stand outside a tobacconist's shop, talking in low voices, their cigarette smoke rising to join the coal smoke from the chimneys above. A group of children play in a small courtyard entrance, throwing snowballs, their laughter high and clear in the cold air. Before an adult voice calls them back inside, you pass the lamppost that marks the corner where Julepik meets a smaller side street. The gas lamp is still burning, though barely visible in the daylight. A small yellow glow that seems warm and cheerful against all this white and gray. Someone will come soon to extinguish it, making their rounds, but for now it burns on, a reminder of last night, a bridge between darkness and day. A horse and cart make their careful way up the street, the horse's hooves, muffled by snow, slipping occasionally on the hidden cobbles beneath. The driver sits hunched on his seat, reins held carefully, talking to the horse in a low, encouraging voice. The cart's wheels cut deep tracks through the snow, revealing the dark cobblestones beneath for a moment before the tracks begin to fill in again with fresh snowfall. You step aside to let them pass, pressing yourself against a building wall, and the driver touches his cap to you in thanks. The buildings themselves seem different in this light, in this weather. You've walked this street 1,000 times, barely noticing the architecture, the details, the way one building differs from another. But today you see them fresh, the way snow accumulates differently on different surfaces, thick on stone ledges, barely clinging to slate roofs piled in the corners of windows. The way some windows glow with interior light and warmth, while others remain dark and cold. The small architectural details that are usually invisible become prominent when outlined in white, the carved faces above doorways, the decorative ironwork, the subtle variations in the building facades. You can see into some ground floor windows as you pass, catching glimpses of other people's morning routines. A woman standing at a stove, stirring something in a pot. A man reading a newspaper by lamplight. Children eating breakfast at a table. These brief windows into other lives feel intimate, almost intrusive, and you look away quickly, giving people their privacy even as you can't help but notice. The smell of baking bread reaches you before you see the boulangerie, and your stomach responds immediately, reminding you that your simple breakfast was not particularly filling. The bakery is already busy, its windows fogged with condensation, its door opening and closing as customers come and go. The warmth that escapes each time the door opens is palpable, even from several feet away, carrying with it the yeasty, slightly sweet smell of fresh bread. You'll stop there on your way back, you decide, once you've been to the market. Fresh bread, still warm, for tonight's supper, small luxury to reward yourself for braving the cold. Further down the street, the cobbler's shop shows a light in the window, and you can see old Monsieur Bertrand already at his bench, bent over his work. He's ancient, or seems so to you, and he's been mending shoes in this same spot for longer than you've been alive. The rhythmic tap-tap-tap of his hammer carries through the cold air, a familiar sound, reassuring in its ordinariness. Some things continue, regardless of weather, regardless of season. A dog trots past you, heading uphill with apparent purpose, its paws leaving a clear trail in the snow. It's a medium-sized mutt, brown and white, and it seems completely unbothered by the cold or the wet, moving with the confidence of an animal that knows where it's going. You wonder if it belongs to someone, or if it's one of the many strays that roam Paris streets. Surviving on scraps and their own resourcefulness, the market is still several streets away, and you settle into the rhythm of walking through snow, finding your pace, learning to read the surface beneath your feet. You can tell now by the resistance and the sound. When you're walking on snow-covered cobbles versus snow covering something else, patches of ice, piles of refuse, the wooden planks that sometimes cover gutters. Your body learns quickly, makes adjustments, finds balance. The cold is seeping deeper now, past your initial shock and adjustment, finding its way through the layers of clothing to your skin. Your fingers in their fingerless mittens are growing numb, and you tuck them under your arms occasionally, trying to warm them with body heat. Your face, exposed to the air, feels tight and stiff, your cheeks probably red from the cold. Your feet are definitely wet now, the moisture having worked its way through your boots. And there's nothing to do but accept it, ignore it, keep walking. But there's something exhilarating about it, too. About being out in this weather, about being part of the city in this moment. You feel alive, present, connected to the world around you in a way you don't always feel during ordinary days. The cold, the beauty, the challenge of it all combines to create a kind of heightened awareness, a sense of being fully in your body, fully in this moment, fully here. You turn a corner and the wind hits you full force, having been funneled between buildings, and you gasp at the sudden intensity of it. Snow swirls in the wind, creating brief whiteouts, and you bend your head against it, pushing forward. This is the reality behind the beauty, the harshness that must be endured. Winter is not all pretty scenes and gentle snowfalls. It's also this biting wind, dangerous cold, the constant battle to stay warm and dry. The market and human warmth. The market is already alive with voices and movement, a pocket of warmth and humanity in the cold, white morning. You round the final corner and see it spread before you, the covered market hall with its iron framework and glass roof. Vendors setting up their stalls despite the weather. Customers already gathering, the whole scene busy with activity and purpose. The contrast between the quiet, snow-muffled streets and this hive of commerce and conversation is striking, and you feel yourself drawn toward it, toward the promise of warmth and human connection. The market hall provides some shelter from the snow, though it's open on the sides and hardly warm. Still, just being out of the direct snowfall feels like a relief, and you stamp your feet to shake off the accumulated snow from your boots, feeling it fall in wet clumps. Other people are doing the same, a small ritual of arrival. Everyone marking the transition from outdoors to this semi-sheltered space. The vendors have been here since before dawn. Setting up their stalls, arranging their goods, preparing for the day's trade. They look cold and tired, many of them bundled in layers that make them appear twice their normal size. Their hands red and chapped from handling cold vegetables and frozen meat. But they're here, calling out their wares, competing for attention, the market's eternal dance of supply and demand continuing regardless of weather. You begin to make your rounds, moving from stall to stall with the particular purpose of someone shopping on a limited budget who must make every sou count. The vegetable vendor you usually patronize, Madame Rosier, A sturdy woman with a loud voice and a sharp eye for cheaters nods in recognition as you approach. You've been buying from her for months now, and she knows your habits, knows you buy carefully but regularly, knows you're honest and pay promptly. Her stall displays the winter offerings: cabbages, turnips, carrots, onions, potatoes, nothing fresh or green. Everything hardy enough to have been stored since autumn or grown in cold frames. The vegetables look tired, you think, past their prime but still edible, still nourishing. The potatoes have eyes sprouting from them. The carrots are limp rather than crisp. The cabbage's outer leaves are yellowed. But this is winter, and these are what's available. What people eat until spring brings renewal. You pick up a turnip, testing its weight, checking for soft spots that might indicate rot beneath the surface. Madame Rosier watches with the patient expression of someone who has seen customers examine produce countless times and knows this is part of the ritual. You select 3 turnips, 2 carrots, and an onion, placing them in your basket. The price she names is fair, neither generous nor exploitative, the standard rate for such goods at this time of year. You count out the coins from your small purse, and the exchange is made. Your basket a little heavier, your purse a little lighter. The bread seller is next. Though you'll only buy a small amount here, since you plan to stop at the boulangerie on your way home. But this seller has yesterday's bread at a reduced price, and you're practical enough to know that day-old bread is perfectly good for most purposes. You buy a half loaf, adding it to your basket. With some clever soaking or toasting, it will serve well enough for your needs around you. The market is a study in human endurance and adaptation. Women haggle over prices, their voices rising in practiced outrage at vendors' initial offers. Men carry heavy baskets or pull small carts, transporting purchases for their families or employers. Children weave through the crowd, running errands for parents, sneaking samples when vendors aren't looking, generally being underfoot. The vendors call out constantly, advertising their wares, claiming superior quality, dropping prices as the morning progresses, and they realize certain items won't sell. The fish seller's stall carries the sharp, briny smell of the sea. Though you're hundreds of miles from any coast, the fish are laid out on beds of ice, their scales still gleaming, their eyes still relatively clear, fresh enough, brought in on this morning's train from the coast. Fish is a luxury you can rarely afford, but you pause to look anyway, admiring the variety, remembering the taste of properly cooked fish from better times. The seller catches your eye and immediately begins his pitch, but you shake your head, smiling apologetically, and move on. He doesn't take offense. He knows which customers have money and which don't, and he was only trying. You pass the butcher's stall, where carcasses hang from hooks and bloodstains, the cutting blocks despite the cold that should keep everything clean. Meat is beyond your budget, except for special occasions, or when you've managed to save enough for a small piece to flavor a stew. The butcher, a large man with forearms like hams, is joking with a well-dressed customer, his manner jovial and attentive in the way it is with those who can afford his better cuts. The customer is buying what looks like a roast, enough meat to feed a family for days, paying a sum that would cover your food for a week. This is always part of the market. Experience the visible reminder of class differences, of inequality, of the vast gap between those who must count every sou and those who buy without thought of cost. You're not bitter about it, exactly. This is simply the way the world is, the way it has always been. But you're aware of it, conscious of your place in this hierarchy, of the limitations that govern your choices. The egg woman has fresh eggs this morning, miraculously, and you decide to splurge on 2 of them. Eggs are versatile, nourishing, a good use of money when you can afford them. She wraps them carefully in paper, and you nestle them in your basket among the vegetables where they'll be cushioned and protected. 2 eggs means 2 good meals, or 1 very good meal, or the possibility of baking something if you can spare the flour and sugar. You notice Madame Beaumont from your building standing at another stall, examining fabric remnants, and you make your way over to her. She looks even more tired than usual, her face gray, her eyes watery, and that cough still rattling in her chest. You ask after her health, and she waves away your concern with the automatic response of those who are too used to illness to complain about it anymore. But you insist, telling her you'll bring her some hot soup later if she likes. And she softens, accepting with a gratitude that makes you glad you offered. This is what neighbors do. What community means in a city that can be cold and impersonal. You look after each other where you can, share what you have when you're able. Offer comfort and assistance in the face of hardship. It's not charity, exactly, not when it goes both ways, when everyone gives and receives in turn. It's mutual survival, mutual support, the web of small kindnesses that makes life bearable. The cheese vendor has a limited selection today. The cold makes transportation difficult, and many deliveries are delayed, but what he has looks and smells appealing. You're tempted, very tempted, by a small round of goat cheese, but the price makes you hesitate. Do you need it, or do you merely want it? Your budget forces these constant calculations, these weighings of necessity versus desire. In the end, you decide against it, telling yourself there will be other weeks, other opportunities. The vegetables and eggs and bread must be enough. As you complete your shopping, you take a moment to simply observe the market, to absorb its atmosphere. There's something deeply human about this scene, about people gathering to trade and barter, to acquire the things they need to survive, to interact and connect. Markets like this have existed for thousands of years in every culture, in every place where people have lived together in communities. The specific goods change, the currencies change, the clothing and language change, but the fundamental human needs and behaviors remain the same. A coffee vendor has set up near the entrance, and the smell of it is intoxicating, rich and dark, and promising warmth. You watch as other people buy cups of it, wrapping their cold hands around the warmth, sipping gratefully. Coffee is another luxury you usually forego, but today, after walking through the snow, with your feet wet and cold, your hands numb despite your mittens, you decide to treat yourself. Just this once. Just today, you approach the vendor and order a small cup. The price is modest. Coffee at a market stall is meant for working people, not the wealthy, but still more than you'd normally spend on something so ephemeral. The vendor pours from his large pot, steam rising in clouds, and hands you a tin cup filled with hot, black coffee. You wrap both hands around it immediately, feeling the heat soak into your palms, and raise it to your lips. The first sip is almost painfully hot, but you don't care. The coffee is strong and bitter. Nothing like the refined beverage served in cafes, but it's exactly what you need. You can feel the warmth traveling down your throat, spreading through your chest, reaching toward your cold extremities. You stand there, sipping slowly, letting the coffee warm you from the inside while the heat of the cup warms your hands. And for these few minutes, the cold doesn't matter quite so much. You notice a mother with 3 small children, all of them looking thin and poorly dressed for the weather. The children's faces are pinched with cold, their eyes large in their small faces, and the mother looks worn down by worry and responsibility. She's counting coins in her palm, trying to make them stretch far enough, making the same painful calculations you know so well. On impulse, you approach and ask if the children would like to share your coffee. The mother looks at you with surprise and suspicions. Strangers offering things always raises questions, but something in your face must reassure her, because she nods, and you divide the remaining coffee among the 3 children. Watching their faces light up at the unexpected warmth, the mother thanks you, her voice rough with emotion, and you wave it away, uncomfortable with gratitude for such a small thing. But you understand what it meant, that small gesture, that moment of warmth for children who probably don't have enough of warmth or food or comfort. You've been there yourself, close enough to that edge to remember how much small kindnesses matter when you're struggling. Afternoon solitude and simple tasks as afternoon settles in and the snow shows no sign of stopping. There's a particular peace in surrendering to the rhythm of a winter die-in, accepting the slow passage of hours. You've returned home from the market, climbed the 4 flights of stairs with your basket heavy with purchases, and now you stand in your room, grateful for its modest warmth, glad to be inside again. The first task is to remove your wet boots and sodden stockings. Your feet are pale and wrinkled from the moisture, cold to the touch, and you rub them briskly with a dry cloth, trying to restore circulation and warmth. You place the wet stockings near the stove to dry, draping them over a chair, back where the heat can reach them but they won't scorch. The boots you stuff with old newspapers, which will help absorb the moisture and hopefully speed the drying process. They'll still be damp tomorrow morning, you know from experience, but perhaps not quite as bad. You change into dry stockings, feeling the immediate relief of wool against your cold skin, and then set about unpacking your market purchases. The vegetables go on your small shelf, arranged neatly. The bread you wrap again in its cloth. The eggs you place carefully in a bowl, treating them with the respect due to precious things. Your remaining money goes back into its tin, and you count it quickly, noting how much you have left until the next time you receive payment for your piecework. The room has retained some warmth from your morning fire, but the stove needs tending again. You add fresh coal, not too much, just enough to maintain a moderate heat. Coal is too expensive to burn freely, and you've learned to gauge exactly how much you need to stay comfortable without being wasteful. The fire catches quickly on the remaining coals, and soon the stove is radiating warmth again, that gentle heat that makes the room feel livable rather than merely survivable. Outside your window, the snow continues its quiet descent. You stand watching it for a few minutes, never quite tired of the sight, never quite taking it for granted. The street below is quieter now, most people having completed their morning errands and retreated indoors. The tracks made earlier are being slowly covered over by fresh snowfall. The world being erased and rewritten in white. You settle into your chair by the window, where the light is best, and reach for your mending basket. There's always mending to be done, stockings with holes, shirts with loose buttons, tears that need repairing. You've been putting off mending your best skirt, the one with the hem that came loose last week, and now is as good a time as any. You thread your needle with matching thread, tie a small knot at the end, and begin the careful work of reattaching the hem with tiny, invisible stitches. Mending is meditative work, requiring attention but not intense concentration, leaving your mind free to wander. Your hands know what to do, moving almost automatically through the familiar motions, the needle piercing fabric, the thread pulled through, the next stitch begun. The rhythm of it is soothing, productive, without being demanding. You can watch the snow fall while you work, can let your thoughts drift where they will. You think about the people you saw at the market this morning, about Madame Beaumont and her persistent cough, about the mother with her thin children, about the vendors standing in the cold, calling out their wares. You think about the fish you couldn't afford, the cheese you decided against, the coffee you bought yourself and then gave away. Small decisions, small moments, but they make up the texture of life. The pattern of days, the light from the window, is that peculiar gray-white that comes with heavy snow clouds, diffused and directionless, neither bright nor truly dim. It's adequate for your work, though, and you're grateful for it. In the evening, you'll need to light your lamp, burning precious oil, but for now, the daylight, such as it is enough. Your mind wanders to the past, as it often does during these quiet afternoon hours. You remember other winters, winters in the village where you grew up, before you came to Paris seeking work and independence. You remember your family's small house, your siblings crowded together for warmth, your mother working by firelight after the sun went down. You remember feeling restless there, feeling confined by the limitations of village life, dreaming of the city and its opportunities, and here you are in Paris, independent as you wished, with your own room and your own life. But independence, you've learned, comes with its own costs, its own loneliness. There are times when you miss the companionship of family, the automatic closeness of people who've known you all your life. Here in the city, you have neighbors, but not family, acquaintances, but not intimate friends. It's a different kind of life, with different satisfactions and different sorrows. The hem is nearly finished now. Your stitches, small and even, practically invisible. You take pride in your needlework, in the quality of your mending. It's a skill your mother taught you, one of many practical skills she made sure you learned. Whatever else might happen, you can always mend clothes, can always make yourself useful in that way. It's not much, perhaps, but it's something. You knot the thread securely, cut it with your small scissors, and examine your work. The hem hangs properly again, the stitches barely visible, satisfactory. You fold the skirt neatly and set it aside. Then reach for the next item in your mending basket, a stocking with a hole in the heel. More darning work, more patient stitching, more hours filled with productive quiet. The afternoon stretches out, time moving slowly in that way it has on winter days when you're confined indoors. There's something almost luxurious about it, this time that belongs entirely to you, with no demands except those you place on yourself. You can work or not work as you choose, can think or not think, can simply be. You realize you're hungry and decide to prepare a simple meal. The turnips from this morning's market will make a good base for soup. You peel them carefully, saving the peelings for broth, and cut them into chunks. An onion adds flavor, and you have a small knob of butter that you can spare. No meat, but the soup will be nourishing enough, especially served with bread. The preparation of food is another meditative task, another rhythm to fall into. The knife against the cutting board, the sizzle of onion in butter, the smell of it rising, sweet and savory. You add water, a pinch of salt from your small store, some dried herbs that you gathered last summer and hung to dry. The pot goes on the stove, and soon it's bubbling gently, filling your room with the homely smell of cooking food. While the soup simmers, you sit again and pick up the darning. The hole in the stocking heel requires careful work, weaving thread back and forth to create new fabric where the old has worn away. It's painstaking, this invisible mending, this repair work that extends the life of things that would otherwise be thrown away. But throwing away is a luxury you can't afford. Everything must be used, repaired, made to last as long as possible. You think about wealth and what it means. Not just money, though money is certainly part of it, but the freedom to not worry constantly about wearing things out, breaking things, losing things. The freedom to replace rather than repair, to buy new rather than make do with old. You've worked in wealthy households, sometimes, seen how they live, how casually they treat possessions that would be precious to you. It's not that you envy them exactly, but you're aware of the difference, conscious of the vast gap between their lives and yours. The darning is finished, and you try on the stocking to check your work. The darn is visible if you know where to look. A slightly different texture in the fabric, but it's sturdy, and that's what matters. The stocking will last now for several more months, perhaps longer if you're careful. Your soup is ready, and you ladle some into a bowl, cutting a thick slice of bread to go with it. The bread is yesterday's from the market, not quite fresh, but it softens nicely when dipped in the hot soup. You eat slowly, savoring each bite, letting the warmth spread through you. This is dinner and supper combined, one meal that must serve for the rest of the day. And you make it last, make it enough after eating. You wash your bowl and pot, using the minimum amount of water, and set them to dry. The day is fading now, afternoon sliding toward evening, the already dim light growing dimmer. You return to your chair and watch the snow, which has lessened considerably, but hasn't stopped entirely. The street is quiet, almost deserted, everyone inside sheltering from the cold. You think you might read for a while, if the light holds. You have a book borrowed from a lending library, a novel that you've been working through slowly, a few pages at a time. Reading is a luxury too, in its way, time spent on something that isn't directly practical or productive, but it feeds something in you, this escape into other worlds, other lives, other possibilities. You open the book and find your place, marked with a scrap of ribbon. The story is about people very different from you, people with different problems and concerns, but that's part of its appeal. For these minutes, these hours, you can live in someone else's experience, can forget your own small room and limited circumstances, can be somewhere else entirely. The light fades gradually, and you read until you can barely make out the words on the page. Then reluctantly, knowing lamp oil is precious and shouldn't be wasted, you close the book and set it aside. The room is growing colder now as the day ends. The stove's heat not quite enough to counter the chill seeping in around the window frame. Through the thin walls, you prepare Madame Beaumont's soup, ladling the remainder of what you made into a small covered pot that you can carry next door. It's still warm, and the warmth will be welcome. And perhaps the nourishment will help her fight off whatever illness has settled in her chest. You wrap your shawl around your shoulders and venture into the corridor. Knocking softly on her door, she answers slowly, and you can hear how difficult breathing is for her. You hand her the pot, and she accepts with grateful tears in her eyes, touched that someone thought of her, that someone cared enough to bring her food. You stay only a moment, not wanting to tire her with conversation, and return to your own room feeling that you've done something good, something kind, however small.
And so we come to the end of tonight's story. Thank you truly for spending this time with me. If you enjoyed this journey through history, please subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new episode. Leave a like if this helped you relax, and share it with anyone who might need a peaceful night's rest. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What part of Genghis Khan's story stayed with you the most? What would you like to explore in future episodes? Your voice matters here. Now, let go of the day. Let go of everything that doesn't serve you in this moment. The step is quiet, the wind is soft, and sleep is waiting for you, gentle and warm. Good night, dear listener. Rest well, and I'll see you in the next story.